First 8-0 start for the Birds in their history. As we welcome you here to Eagles Postgame Live, brought to you by Auto Insurance. Amy Fadool, Barrett Brooks, Ron Jaworski, and Reuben Frank alongside. And guys, listen, we know it wasn't pretty, certainly early on. We're going to talk about the lack of that run defense and some other miscues. But the most important thing, Barrett, as I've told you before, there is no room for comments in the win-loss section. Put the W up, 8-0.
Woo! Woo! 8-0. Yes, 8-0. That's the extent of what it is, 8-0. Yes, we saw some bad football being played. My guys, some of the guys getting their ass kicked, but hey, we won. We won the game. That's the biggest thing. We won the game. We're 8-0. We're still a top team in the NFL as far as our record.
Bottom line.
That is. I mean, honestly.
Find a way to win. That's the name of the game. Put the W and you move on. They didn't play their best game.
No.
That's a given.
No, they didn't.
And they beat a bad team. That's given. But it is a W. You keep building upon it.
And you know, I like the way this team deals with adversity. And,
good point.
You know, whether it's falling behind Jacksonville 14-0 or almost blowing a 17-point lead in the opener in Detroit. You know, tonight you go into the third quarter, 14-14. This team doesn't panic. They don't try to, you know, be great, you know, on the first play and get it all back. They just kind of methodically go out and do their thing. They're very focused in that way. And when you can do that, you know, you're going to win these ugly type games. And people might not like winning ugly, but it beats losing ugly.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at them. Look at them. I mean, look the way they're coming in. They're walking in. They're
Jordan
not
Mailata. He did not have a good game. He's got some work
Yeah.
to do on that outside.
We're gonna talk a little bit about Mailata. These guys had some real issues.
The whole
with
line
his
struggled
play.
today.
They did. They did. Obviously, they did. And the defensive front struggled as well against the run, as we saw against the Texans. Damian Pierce as advertised in that regard. But, B, let's talk a little bit more about that O-line. You said something. You just thought Mailata didn't have that quickness that you need him to have.
No, he didn't look like he was getting off the ball fast enough. I didn't see that Jason Peters jump set that I've seen him use so many times. I mean, Lane Johnson, you know, he was jumping the count too, you know, but I didn't see that from Jordan, and that was surprising to me. I was disappointed in his ability to get off the ball. That's one of the things that make this O-line great, is their ability to get off the ball, get off on the snap count. They work on that, you know, constantly, you know, throughout the time here. I mean, that's something that, you know, the offensive line coach, Coach Stoutland, emphasizes. Getting off on the ball, get to a point, and get ready to fight. The guy that he was going against, Hughes, was beating him to the spot, and he was turning the corner. And a lot of the times when they were blitzing or, you know, he got around the corner, it really caught Jalen Hurts by surprise because he hadn't seen this type of pressure on him in a long time.
Saw that with the fumble. You saw Nick Sirianni there. This franchise has been around since 1933, first 8-0 start ever for them. But, Jaws, going back to some of the things that Bear's talking about, you noticed it as well as we're watching this upstairs all together. It just seemed like they were maybe just off a little bit, a step too slow, a move too late on the O-line.
Yeah, I think the O-line, I mean, you look at the numbers, you say, well, they had a good day. You know, 31 rushes, 140-some yards rushing the football. Those are all good numbers. But they didn't impose their will.
Right.
And with this offensive line, it is the best offensive line in football.
Not tonight, it wasn't.
It was not tonight. I'm with you on that, Rube. But when you go up against a team like Tennessee, which got gashed by Tennessee last week, they couldn't stop the run, period. So it's one of those games where you have to take away lessons. You learn from games like this. They didn't have their A game yet. They had a solid game running the football. And they, for the most part, protected the quarterback pretty well. Jalen got hit a couple times. He got to be a little careful with the football. Now, I always, everyone gets crazy. They get mad at me sometimes when I say I don't like to see him run. I don't know why late in the game they're calling a quarterback draw for him. It only takes one shot, and you can see they were punching the ball, punching at his arm. One shot like that, the game was in hand. The game was in hand at that point. Give it to the guys that are paid a lot of money to run the football. Let them run the football and kill the clock. But it wasn't a clean performance. That's probably the most disappointing
I thought
thing.
Jalen's pocket awareness wasn't where it has been all year. A lot of that was just how quickly the rush was getting to him. But, you know, he ran into – it's really 2 weeks in a row he's run into some trouble and had trouble escaping in the pocket. But when the pressure's getting there that quick, sometimes you have no choice. But he certainly delivered the ball so accurately tonight. Yeah. And what was he, 21 out of 27? 2 more touchdowns. And I thought for him to – be that accurate. He never really got into a rhythm. A lot of that was the pressure he was facing. So to kind of work through that and still make those passes that he was making, 21 out of 27, no interceptions, I think is really impressive.
That's the turnaround. But hey, let's look at the guys, the bright, shining stars of this game. Dallas Goedert comes up
Someone's
big time.
bold prediction there.
Of course, we'll get to that later,
Yep.
Well, we sure we will get to that.
Let me pat myself on the back here. But, you know, when you look at a team like Lovie Smith, they love to play that split safety look. So if you give the quarterback time, there's going to be opportunities for that guy coming out into the locker room right now. If he gets a little bit of time, your tight end is the guy that's going to work those voids against that split safety look. And Goddard had a big game today, and that's what you want to get. 8 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. He's against a defense that's giving you that pass. You got to take advantage of it, and the Eagles did. And Goddard was A+ today.
Yeah, what he means by split safeties, you know, they ran cover two deep safeties over the top. They just were not going to let these receivers get the big play down the field. They saw the touchdown, the 4 touchdowns for over 25 yards. They were, hell-bent on not letting those guys get behind them, and that's what they did. They ran basically Tampa 2, trying to make sure that. But when you run those type of defenses, the middle of the field is open. You can get it to those tight ends. You can get it to running backs on little Texas routes. Those are the situations where you got to take advantage of them. And when we had time, he did take advantage of it. The touchdown that he had to A.J. Brown, that was the sense where he took advantage of the coverage. They can do it, but they just got to make sure they handle the line of scrimmage better than they did today.
Goddard is so much fun to watch because he's got the hands of a receiver. He runs routes like a wide receiver, but he's so physical once he gets the ball in his hands. He's like a linebacker, and he's just such a tough matchup. His yards after the catch are off the charts.
When you're watching these guys come off the field, and you guys all notice it, they're not hanging their heads, but they certainly know that they didn't have a good game. Does that fuel them a little bit?
They look the same after every game.
Yeah, that's true. Well, they look exhausted for one, but you're looking at it.
Short week.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. That the plus of this is now they have a little bit longer week to recover, and they do have some tougher teams coming up. Maybe not next week, we know, but can they take something like this and say, hey, listen, we know now that we can't hang our hats on just rolling out there and we're automatically the best team?
I don't think that happened, though.
No?
I don't think that's an issue with this team. I think Houston played really, really well.
Yeah, they did.
And the Eagles didn't play that well.
Okay.
And it kind of reminded me of that Miami game a few years ago. Remember that loss down there when they got upset?
Awful,
Miami was a bad team. They just played really, really well that day. And this is like that. Houston. And this is what the Eagles are going to get every week. They're everybody's Super Bowl.
That's a bad football team. I mean,
they
played well.
They played hard. I don't think they necessarily played well.
They played hard.
They got a bunch of JV receivers. I mean,
they do.
They really got.
And they made some good plays.
And they made some plays. I agree, a couple blown covers, but that's not a team that should have been competitive into this fourth quarter. It was. I'll respect the NFL player caliber. They're NFL players, but that's a team we should have beat. Well, by 20 points.
Wait, and it was tied at the half.
Well, they beat them by 12
like,
and missed a field goal.
Yeah, but I mean, when it's 14-all, you're thinking this is not where this should have been. It should have been more in hand at that point.
Why did they even score the first drive that they had?
That's the first time they had scored the first drive of the season.
Come on, I mean, that to me, it kind of felt like they were going in a direction they shouldn't go. It's not as though they weren't prepared. They were prepared, but it was a lot of bad football being played by these guys. Like I mentioned earlier on, Jordan Mailata not getting off on the snap count, not getting off on the ball, them snapping the ball too early. Those are things that can be taken care of. Jalen Hurts not seeing the blitz twice from the cap blitz from the outside or the safety blitz from the outside. Those are things that they usually say, and they can counter that. A lot of the times when he sat back and that cap blitz came, he thought it was going to be protected, but it wasn't. The tight end didn't block the guy off the edge because it was a late snap or an early snap, because you could tell by the way Hurts got the ball, he wasn't ready for the ball. So those are little things they got to get together. Maybe they don't need this little break. Maybe they need to go ahead and play.
The biggest thing is tackling. I mean, that's this team's biggest issue. And we saw. I mean, Dameon Pierce is the kind of guy that's not going to go down if you just wave at him. He's a physical runner. Kind of saw it happening.
You can't thud him. You got to wrap him up.
You can't just all of a sudden shoulder.
And I'll tell you what, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is a heck of a playmaker. That's 5 interceptions in 4 games.
Yeah.
He's the worst. I mean, he is the worst tackler I've ever seen.
He'll make a Pro Bowl on interception.
He will. He will.
But
I mean, it's an issue. I mean, this is the #1 tackling team in the league last year. They're number 31 going into this game. They might pass Jacksonville for that bottom spot. They got to figure that out, because against bad teams, you can get away with it. Against good teams, you can't.
Well, teams committed to the run. You're going to see,
Titans,
Saquon Barkley down the road,
Giants.
Derrick Henry. You're going to see
Tony Pollard.
You're going to see some studs down the road, guys that will run over your butt unless you're tackling properly.
You also saw when they did run the bare front meaning the center was covered and the 2 guards were recovered. When they put Hargrave down inside and they trusted him to be that guy, that's his natural position. That's what he played when he was in Pittsburgh. That's where he made his money at. They put him in here. He got used to it again. Then you start to see him start to amp it up and put a little pressure on the quarterback from the inside, which makes Davis Mills a little uncomfortable. They can run this Bear front without Jordan Davis, but it's going to take them committing to the 50 front, the Bear front, for them to go forward, and probably then they can stop the run with those guys.
Hargrave was on fire in that fourth quarter.
And
he
they needed him to be.
Fourth quarter.
They needed him to be.
Absolutely.
5 sacks in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
And they're not getting the outside pressure that they need. You know, BG's been quiet for a few weeks. Sweat has been quiet for a while. So it's great to see Hargrave really dominating like that.
You guys all mentioned it, the short week. When you're talking about some of the miscues that you don't normally see, the Jalen Hurts kind of being off his game, can you attribute some of that to that, or is it just one of those things where you just chalk it up to a bad game, Jaws?
You have to adjust to it. I mean, it's the same for everybody. You know, when you play a Thursday game, a Monday game, a Saturday game, it's just when you're a good football team like the Eagles are, starting to teeter on becoming a great football team, you're going to get you're going to get slotted into the big games. People want to see the great teams on Saturday, on Sunday in the playoffs. You know, it just you got to deal with it. And so far, I mean, they've done pretty well. You know, the bye week coming back, got a little extra time now to get ready. Those are all good things now. Now they can use it to their advantage. Short week with a Thursday, but now looking forward to Washington.
Extra time.
You got extra time.
Yeah, that is the plus about that. It was just something we hadn't seen from Jalen Hurts, and we did talk about he was good at times. Obviously, we saw how efficient he was and how accurate he was. But the lost fumble is going to come back a little bit, and that could have been just a timing thing because it seemed like they were jumping a little bit on that O-line when you were up there watching.
Absolutely, absolutely. He got beat. You know, even Lane got beat. You know, it wasn't a sack. But it was a hurry. You know, those are things that you don't usually see, especially from a guy like, Lane Johnson. They were just off. You know, and I can't say it enough, but you know, they had to play on a Thursday, had to amp it up. But guess who also played on Thursday? The Texans played on Thursday. Pierce played on Thursday. Pierce ate us up. Over 100 yards rushing on our defense. Come on now, you got to tackle better. You got to make sure that.
168.
I mean, that number is alarming.
Yeah, and the last 4 weeks have been 124, 134, 144,
Let's go.
and 168.
Well,
can't happen.
Well,
what's Saquon
They're
doing?
8-0. I mean, they're still 8-0, and that's.
But they got to get better.
They got to get better,
tackle
and they understand that. That's what's going to make them a better team because they know they got some things they got to correct.
Good thing is that Jordan Davis should be back in time for those 4 good opponents that they're facing later in the season.
Right.
So he obviously, in case you missed the news, he went on IR, so he has to miss the next 4 games. But let's check out our QB comparison brought to you by Team Toyota. We looked at it. Barrett, you giggled a little bit when we were talking about Davis Mills, but are you still giggling a little bit?
No. I mean, let me put that up. Let me put that giggle up. Put it in my pocket because he definitely showed us out.
Jaws told us this. The kid, you had talked to his old coach, David Culley, and he can throw a little bit. He can run a little bit. Obviously, he's not to where
13 passes.
He's okay.
He only threw 22.
Yeah, it's not the worst I've ever seen for a guy that has 2 last names. It's all you can ask for. When you're thinking about it, his passer rating not great, but he managed the game okay for what he had. There was no one. He has one weapon, Dameon Pierce.
But the interception was brutal.
Oh, it was.
And when you're in that kind of game, you know you can't make a mistake. He made a bonehead mistake. For as much as I like the way he played hard, he did all the things you have to do. He tried to run. That was a brutal mistake. Those turnovers will kill you, and it was a tight game at that point.
83%. And you knew it was coming, too.
Yeah.
You could kind of see it coming because they were in a position where they finally couldn't run every snap, got him into a known throw situation, and played right into the Eagles' secondary's hands.
And you saw during that time when you saw it about to happen, you saw the Eagles' defense start acting like the Eagles' defense. They started running around, rallying to the ball. Things
because they weren't running the ball.
Right.
Exactly. They stopped the run. They had to stop the run first before that stuff would happen. They've got to learn that you can't go out there and allow teams to run down your throat like that because then at that point the team gets too much hope. They get a lot of, they get a sense that they belong on the same field as you. And there's no point that this team should have been on the same field.
Well, that's complementary football. That's the offense building a big enough lead where the Texans had to stop running the ball.
Yeah, so they had to go to the air, and then you saw the results.